check, 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 check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Buckle my shoe. 3, 4. All right. So, we're still got folks coming. Okay, very good, very good. We still got a few folks coming. We've got 6 seats over here. We do have some seats up in the loft. Oh, and we've got 2 or 3 seats over here as well. And we do have some seats up in the loft as long as you're not with pacemaker or have a potential cardiac. It's a little hot up there. So, okay, it's real hot up there. Oh, and there's a couple spots over here as well. Sean, you got a seat? All right. Hey, hey, all you groovy guys and groovy gals out there. It's Tom Porter. Yeah. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8, actually.
Make it 7.
Make it 7. 6.5. Okay. All right. Got quiet all of a sudden. And stop you all the first 14 minutes. I mean, this is a real social. You know what I'm saying? I was talking to Andy earlier and I said, hey, let's pass the plates, man. What are we doing here? I mean, come on, right? Pastor needs a new vacation, you know? I'm thinking Royal Caribbean. Don't mess with the other one.
Won't even consider it.
Yeah. All right. We're getting there, folks. And believe it or not, we're on schedule. I mean, I skipped the first 2 slides in there, so opening prayer? Don't worry about it. You know? Hello, Ann. How are you? Thank you for getting her to sit down. Because that's a feat in itself. Okay. Wow. Packed house. Would you have it any other way?
No.
It's awesome.
8 o'clock, 11 o'clock. We got 2 services.
Yeah. 8 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and a 9:30 Bible study.
That's right.
We won't hound you. We're doing it now. All right?
That sounds good. I like that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm all about it. So, yeah. So Trump, Obama, and Clinton went to the border. No, I'm just kidding. Wait a minute, I just broke rule number 1, didn't I? Okay. I'm not going in the dot. There you go, okay? Okay. All right. Yes, I work for peanuts and cake and pecan pie and those little pumpkins. Oh my gosh, I've done those. All right. Hey, Wade, you joining us? Okay, buddy. Aim high. Air Force, aim high. Shoot center mast. Oh, you're in the overflow. Okay, roger that. He's got a horse to feed. Okay. That stays there. Say again? Is anyone else coming? Okay. Annie, are you good? All right. Mic goes off. How's the temperature? We okay? A little warm? All right. Mel's like, could you just start talking about what's going on here? All right. Welcome again. How was the dinner? They are good. Thank you, Pastor, for picking that menu. And Iselle was very happy it was the same as hers. She loved it. Missing the banana pudding, but she'll get over it. Okay. All right. So, at this time, again, I'd like to ask you to turn off, if you haven't already, please turn off your cell phones or silence them, or any other electronic devices that you may have. Our honoree, The Reverend William Hank Hollar Jr. was born January 2nd, 1952, in Asheville, North Carolina, to William Sr. and Dorothy Hollar, the eldest of 3 sons. He was raised in Asheville and was baptized and confirmed in Asheville at Emmanuel Lutheran Church. Pastor Hollar attended the University of North Carolina St. John's College, where he received his AA in '73, and Concordia Senior College at Fort Wayne, Indiana, and graduated with a BA in '75. He received his Master's of Divinity and a degree from Concordia Theological Seminary at Fort Wayne in '79. Pastor Hollar's first call was from the Holy Cross in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where he had served as a vicar. After ordination in Emmanuel, Asheville on June 10, '79, he was installed at Holy Cross and remained there until he received the call to serve at Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Charlottesville, Virginia, in 1989. He served Emmanuel until he accepted the call to become pastor here at Resurrection Lutheran in '92. Active both in the Southern District and the Southeastern District of LCMS, Pastor Hollar has been a chairman of his pastoral circuit, circuit secretary, and circuit counselor. He has served on various boards and committees in both districts.
Would you like me to read?
And there's more. It's a Ginsu commercial, right? Okay. Pastor was a counselor of the Gulf States District and Lutheran Women's Ministry League in Alabama, Zone 2, and here in the Tidewater Zone in Virginia. He served as a delegate of the 56th Regular Convention of the LCMS in Indianapolis in 1986. Pastor Hollar has also been very active in the communities in which he has lived and his family has lived, serving at the boards of directors in the Kiwanis Club in Tuscaloosa, Preserve a Life in Tuscaloosa, and the Temporary Emergency Services and Alliance of Interfaith Ministries in Charlotte. He was a member of the Mayor's Task Force on Child Support Payments, West Alabama Special Olympics, and AIDS Coalition for Public Health, and the United Way. He has also cooperated in many radio ministries in Tuscaloosa, in Charlotte, and as well as here on the peninsula. Maybe you've heard about Pastor Hollar and his motivational goal that he would like to open up his own radio show one day and call it Hollar for Jesus. Okay. And I don't think he's given up on that yet. South Carolina, be careful. All right. He's coming. What's that? Too late, huh? It's too late. You can't turn around now. Hank Hollar and Rita Hendricks were married on June 9th, 1973. Their marriage has been blessed with 2 sons, Jason, again, an assistant principal at Warwick, and Jeff, an operations manager for Ferguson Enterprises in the greater Tampa Bay area, St. Pete, and Clearwater areas. That door just shut by itself. Did you see that? It didn't shut by itself. Okay, it's in. Okay. Oh, okay. Carry on. Just ignore the man behind the curtain. Okay, carry on. Here we go. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Lastly, but always first, Miss Rita Hollar, who is the trained medical office technician. She taught at the Holy Cross in Tuscaloosa Daycare Ministry. Rita was very active and positively impactful here at Resurrection Lutheran, for sure, both in the local and the global outreach. That means world people, okay? As a member and a leader in the Women's Lutheran Ministry, and she has been a paraeducator in both Albemarle County Public Schools and locally in the York County Public School System, from which she most recently retired. I'm seeing a pattern here. Retirement. Okay. So, with all that said, and I'm glad I didn't lose my voice there because that was a long one. I can't keep up with that guy. All right. Pastor Jenninger sent his official farewell in a video, and we're going to play that for you, okay? If we could, please play the video.
Hello, my friends at Resurrection Lutheran Church, and especially to you, Hank and Rita. I am excited for you as you get ready to take steps into your retirement years. And my brothers and sisters there at Resurrection Lutheran Church, thank you so much for this very special blessing and a way that you are setting Hank and Rita apart. And Pastor Hank, thank you so much for your ministry through the years. And when I look back, I think it's almost 40 years of
I can tell you that. It's 40 years of ministry, for sure, okay? Now you know why we have butcher boards. Who knows what a butcher board is? Yeah, okay. All right. I don't know any real dances, so while they're trying to figure that out, I'll pause. Oh, we're going to watch it again. It's not that long. It's like a Hershey's Kiss. Small package, big punch. Okay?
Hello, my friends at Resurrection Lutheran Church, and especially to you, Hank and Rita. I'm excited for you as you get ready to take steps into your retirement years. And my brothers and sisters there at Resurrection Lutheran Church, thank you so much for this very special blessing and a way that you are setting Hank and Rita apart. And Pastor Hank, thank you so much for your ministry through the years. And when I look back, I think it's almost 40 years of ministry, and 27 of those years right there at Resurrection Lutheran Church. And that says something wonderful about your ministry there. It also says something wonderful about Resurrection Lutheran Church and all of the people there. And as we think about all of the ministry that has happened, all of the proclamation of the word, all of the baptisms, all of the things that you've done in your ministry, we know that the Lord Jesus, especially during this time of Epiphany, we think about the way that he has shown and reflected his love through your ministry in the lives of many, many people. And Rita, thank you for the ministry that you have done, as you have this very special vocation as pastor's wife. And thank you for all of the unseen ways that you have supported the ministry at Resurrection through your love and through your support of your husband, Hank. Hank, I know that as a retired pastor, you're going to experience some new freedom, and you're probably going to have people like me who are pretty soon tapping you on the shoulder and saying, Hank, can you help out? So, but in this moment, we'll say the words that I know Jesus is saying as the Lord of the church for you and your ministry. Well done, good and faithful servant. Have a wonderful celebration. We look forward to watching what happens next in your life. God's blessings.
That was the official farewell from the district. And next we're going to play for you just a short video from when Pastor Hollar started back in 1992. I think you'll enjoy it.
I served Lutheran Parish in the South all my life. This is my third parish and 13 years of ministry. And let's be honest, there just isn't a whole lot of Lutherans down here. And it's time we work together to lift high the cross of Jesus Christ and to proclaim the good news that he is our Savior, and share that with those in our community. I gave you the numbers my first time. 60% of people on the peninsula are unchurched. We have a large task ahead of us. By God's grace, as I said in this morning's sermon, there
It's good to know that some things haven't changed. Did you kind of feel that way today when we went to dinner? Yeah, that's right. No signs, unfortunately. But. All right. So I asked Pastor Hank to go have lunch with me so that I could find out a little bit more about him, even though we've been coming here for several years ourselves, off and on, leaving with the military and coming back, and always coming back, of course. So some of the things that I asked him, and a lot of you folks know this already, but I'm going to share this for everyone, were, what year were you called to resurrection? Of course, we all know it was 1992, not only from the video, but from the bio. But he kind of elaborated, and I think it's kind of neat. He said, actually I was called twice. He said the first time I actually declined it. And all the folks who were here who called him go, yeah, he told us no. And this was both in the same year, by the way, in 1992. So, and you'll like this, and you'll have to share this with Jeff as well. But he said to me, they called again. And I prayed, and I talked to Rita, and that's not really what made my mind up. He said, the boys said, Dad, there's beaches, there's water parks, etc., etc., etc. And he came. So, he truly meant that the boys were happy, and it was definitely part of why he came. But he knew when he came to this area that he was gonna stay for a while. So we're glad you did. Remembering some important dates in Pastor Hollar's bio, I wondered about what happened in the year, right? I love that, what happened in the year. We look back at historical things. In 1952, Pastor's birth, 67 years ago. Okay. In 1952, the NCAA Alabama football season, it's very specific, the season. The 19th Orange Bowl, yeah, you know what's coming next, don't you? Is where Alabama Crimson Tide gained national acclaim for the first time with a 61-6 win over Syracuse with the coach, Red Drew. The game was actually played in January 1st, 1953, but the point is it was the 52 season team that won it, okay? Also, just a few things, the Today Show first aired in 1952. The film African Queen with Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn aired in the U.S. that year. So here are just a few people that kind of made me think of Pastor, and they were also born in this same year, 52. Mr. John Goodman, the American actor and comedian, funny man. Mike Shanahan, the American NFL coach, 2 Super Bowls and several division wins, which is what I feel like we got here with Pastor Hollar. And there was a great German, you have to say German, we're Lutherans, right? There was a great German composer, Wolfgang Rimm. Now you're asking yourselves, is this the same Wolfgang? Well, no. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart from Austria was born in 1756. But that wasn't really the important thing. The important thing is that he had a famous name, and he was born the same year as you. He was from Germany, and he was musically talented. So you got 2 out of 3 there. So. Actually, the man can sing. I don't know if you've ever heard him. He can really sing. In 1973, Pastor Hank got married to his lovely wife, Rita. An awesome and wonderful event. Oh, yeah. And he received his associate degree. But nothing else really significant happened that year. However, but 45 years later, we now know how he got the other 2 degrees. Thank you, Rita, for your sacrifice. In 1979, when you received your master's degree, on the 4th of May, Margaret Thatcher becomes the first woman to be elected Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And June 23rd, the rock band Supertramp, Breakfast in America, becomes the #1 album in the U.S., featuring the song Take the Long Way Home. And you might remember in November 79, our long friend in Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini declares the U.S. as the Great Satan. Little did he know. In 1992, when you accepted your call to resurrection, such an awesome year for us, on 22 May, it was Johnny Carson's last appearance and host of the Tonight Show. And in 1992, George H.W. Bush was our 41st president of the United States. Some great leaders. Yes, of course, I'm talking about Johnny Carson and Bush, but, you know. Speaking of leaders, at this time we have a couple of great leaders who are going to come up from our Resurrection church here, and they're going to share some things about you. At this time, if I could, I'd like for us to welcome Mr. Gary Funiak. You were in the cheap seats, weren't you?
I used to sit over here and for many years, and Pastor Hank would always make some remark about the spotlight shining off of my bald head. He still has hair. John, are you speaking tonight too? Yes. Hank, I'll tell you something. When you bring in out-of-town speakers, you know John and I don't go to church here anymore, but we're former members here, so. We do still go to church, but you didn't run us off. It wasn't because of Pastor Hank. Before I start, I was just sitting back there. Shouldn't we give a round of applause for Bill and Andy and everybody else that made this possible? He's much funnier than I remember. I've known the Hollar family since they came here. Cher and I were, we were members here like in '74. So as I was putting this together, I'm like, wow, we are really old. But when we came here, Pastor Bloom was the pastor here. And he was just a wonderful guy. And so it became time for him to retire. And as you know, as Bill said, we called Pastor Hank twice. But he decided to come. And I'll tell you, Pastor Bloom, if you knew him, I said to myself, Pastor Hank's this is going to be a tough act to follow. But as we all know, he followed that act very well. And he did an amazing job for this church for 27 years. The term I would use for Pastor Hank, and I felt, it's appropriate, is he was our shepherd, and he was a good shepherd for many years. In '92, I'm thinking back, that was kind of like when computers kind of were coming into all of our daily lives. And Hank brought so many things to us at an administrative level that improved us. We had a lot of momentum because with Pastor Bloom, we had a building program going. We had just opened this facility. And there was a lot of momentum from the Faith to Grow program. I think the Goods are with us. They remember that. And then we had a new facility. And it was an amazing time. Now, Hank could have fallen flat on his face, but he didn't. He really took us through all of that. We grew. Sunday school grew. The church grew. And it was just an amazing thing. I think of every aspect of this church, Pastor Hank had his hands in and made sure that it was done right. Eventually, we even started a school, and Ann Azell, that was her thing, and she did an amazing job as well. Now, when I think of these two, though, Hank and Ann, and I was in leadership for pretty much all of the years until I left here. These two could always be counted on for a little bantering. Is that not true?
She's older than
And by the way, Bill, I'm as old as he is. We were born the same year. So I worked along this man, and I considered him, he was my pastor, but I was also a co-worker with him, and I think it's fair to say I was also a friend of his, as all of us were, Pastor. We were your friends, and we appreciate what you did for us. Pastor Bloom, I mentioned him. He eventually came back here as Pastor Emeritus. And that was a really special time because the two of them worked together. And Pastor Hank, believe it or not, he does work well with others. His family thought that was funny. And then, of course, we brought in Pastor Ben eventually, and he mentored Pastor Ben. Unfortunately, Pastor Ben left and got his own church up in New Jersey, is it, or Jersey? But I think, too, it's a tribute to what Pastor's success here, I think it's a tribute to this church. Pastor Bloom laid a solid foundation. And I say he laid a solid foundation, but the leadership here and the people here were part of that. And I think you guys have shown that, where you are today and you're getting ready to call another pastor, this is a special place. And I must say that, coming here, seeing all of you, it's like being home again for me and for Cher. We will always consider this place our first home, church home. I'm glad that you mentioned the Alabama football thing. I didn't know quite where to go with that, but yes, I think that we should talk about that. No, Pastor, as you know, he's an Alabama football fan, so his last game of the year for Alabama didn't go too well, Hank. But it was on a Monday night, so I guess you got to see the whole thing, right? Or did you watch the whole thing?
I did.
You did. Well, think of this, Hank. Next year, since you're retired, you're going to be able to watch the fourth quarter on Saturday night and not have to get up for church the next day. Amen, brother, right? So now I thank you all for giving me a chance to make these remarks. Pastor Hank was special to me, and I know he was special to all of you. And to Rita and Pastor Hank, I wish you the best in your retirement. May you have, God grant you good health and peace. And we love you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gary. And now I'd like to welcome, next on the order, Mr. John Gerke.
I think that's the first time anyone ever applauded for me here. One thing, Gary mentioned Pastor Bloom, which some of us remember, and many of you probably don't, but I recall him being here 29 years. So you're a little short.
I didn't want to break this record.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, as Gary mentioned, Gary and Sharon and Sue and I were members here starting in 1990 until 2012 when we moved to the Outer Banks. And with Gary and Sharon, we go to Grace Lutheran down there, which, by the way, if you're ever down there, you're all invited to come visit us. Don't forget that. But I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk. I thought about what to say, and I was thinking a couple of things because in some respects, Pastor, you've been here a while. In some respects, it seems like you just got here. And I started thinking about that, and I go, well, let's see. He did baptize two of our oldest grandkids. And that was a few years ago, about, 8 or 10, I guess, when I think of Noah and Ethan. And then I'm thinking, well, he did marry our kids, too. And that's between 10 and 15 years ago. And then I got to thinking, well, I think he confirmed Stephanie, Scott, and Sarah, all three of them. And then I can't count anymore. That was a while ago. So I guess in reality, when I really thought about it, I was thinking, when he came here, I was still in my 30s. I had more hair, I had dark hair, and both Pastor and I probably could hear a lot better then than we do now. So my point with all that really is this: as we went through our family grew, and the kids grew, and Pastor and Rita were there for all that. They were there to support us. Pastor was there to support us, and I think he has done that for many of you as well. And I think I really appreciate that. So thank you for that. The other thing I think that I learned here coming out of, oh, I should mention one other thing. I told Sue I was going to mention it, but when Pastor Rita came here, they, as Bill mentioned, they served some time in Fort Wayne. Well, Sue and I are from Fort Wayne originally. And I think one of the first times we were sitting down talking, and Pastor and Rita and I, and Rita was talking about where she worked at, and she worked at one time at Montgomery Wards. And Sue said, well, I worked at Montgomery Wards for a while. And they started talking about it and realized they both worked at the same place at the same time. They didn't remember each other, but they remembered some other people. And of course, Pastor Hank, I don't know if you ever know this or not, but at one time he sold shoes. He worked for Fred Tenya's Shoes in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is where young parents with their little kids used to go and get their first pairs of shoes, and some other things. But we had that Fort Wayne connection, and that was some things we could talk about on occasion, and that was a lot of fun. But I think probably the most important thing I'd like to leave with you is this, and I learned it, a lot of this from Pastor Hank, and I see it now, is in my job I get to see a lot of pastors and work with pastors, and the one thing I think Pastor Hank has done very well is over time he's worked with lay people in leadership roles to do things. And I think you got a wonderful group of people here at this congregation, and it's going to be exciting to see how you folks work with the new pastor and go forward and continue to grow so you can be a light on the peninsula here for Jesus Christ. Thank you.
I always wanted to do that, just like you. Okay. We may go off the rails. It's been 27 years for me. You need this? Oh, you got your own, okay. All right. Thank you so much, John. Okay, now on to more about Pastor Hollar. So, a few more things that I asked him. So, tell me what your definition of happiness is. He said, well, my definition of happiness is that all that God has provided for me, the church, my family, the congregational family, all the different locations that I've gotten to live with my family. Specifically, happiness is Rita and the kids, my boys. But again, he concluded at the end, he said, all that God has given me is my happiness. So I asked him, a little opposite spectrum, what is the funniest thing that's ever happened to you? Oh my gosh. I had to pick one. So he said, once I was part of a ministry team, and I'm going to ad-lib here because I don't remember all the specific details. He said, once I was a part of a minister team for a very big service, and I think it was a district service, and it was a Christmas service. It was not. One of those big acronym district worships. And there were hundreds of people there. And pastor's main role was to share the role with another pastor, and that was to consecrate the elements. Thank you very much. Now, pastor was a big gun back then. He was new in ministry, and his job was to help consecrate the elements for communion. And when it came time for him to consecrate the elements in front of hundreds of people, kind of like we are tonight, his mind went blank. And he forgot the words for the cup. And so what he did was, he did what every good pastor does. He just recited what came to mind. And he said, and he took the cup and he broke it. Oh boy. Well, the good thing about this whole thing, besides the fact that that was funny still all this time later, was that the president must have had a good sense of humor, because after it was all said and done, he came to Pastor Hank and he said, so tell me, how many pieces did that cup break into? Wow. We're about midway through lunch now, by the way, and I'm still trying to finish my food. So, okay. So I said, what was your most embarrassing moment? And I thought to myself, really? That wasn't it? Okay. So Years ago, when I was starting out as an even younger pastor, and I was at the ministry of the Holy Cross, I mean, pastors are social beings, right? Their job is to socialize, to chat up people. They were chatting up a bunch of folks, and one of the ladies he saw there seemed a bit big, or rotund, as he said. And he says to the lady, "So, when are you due?" And she said, "I'm not pregnant." Shh. Lesson learned, he said. Lesson learned. Never did that again. So I like this question, and I asked this of you as well. I said, if you could possess one superhuman power, what would it be? Pastor said, I'd like to have the ability to read people's hearts. You know, dealing with people all the time and seeing all of the failure and all of, not necessarily the failure, but the disappointment and things of that nature, I just wished I knew what was in their heart so that I could understand what they need and ultimately guide and help them. And I thought that was very touching and very true of you. So, a couple more things like, you know, where were you when? You know, you've heard these questions. Where were you when? And we all remember where we were at certain times, 9/11, etc. You get the idea. And how did you react? So, where were you when during World War I? Oh, wait a minute, that's too sorry. Wrong script. Hold on. Okay. Thank you, Susan. That was her addition. I can't have it. Where were you during President Kennedy's assassination? 22 November 1963. I was in the 6th grade. I was in Miss Walters' class, and I was staying after school that day for being a bad boy. Are we all shocked? And then he says, we don't need to get into the details right now. So you can ask him that later. Continuing, he said, I came across on the school's PA system, and he felt very sad. But he said, I was sad, but I wasn't really quite sure if I was sad because I was in detention or because the president had been assassinated. Where were you when, and how did you react to the explosion of the Space Shuttle Challenger on January 28th, 1986? I was working at the Holy Cross Church in Tuscaloosa, but he didn't actually find out about it until after the day was ended, and he came home, and Rita had mentioned it to him and told him about the shuttle. A very sad moment, obviously catastrophic. And he said, you know, knowing now that they were actually alive as it was still descending made him very sad. He didn't really want to even think about that. So, all right. So, on that note, how about a trivial question? Now, I'm hoping you're going to, you're an Alabama fan, or is that a bandwagon fan? I'm not sure. But what year did Nick Saban come to Alabama as the head coach? Oh, survey says? Okay. Good, I don't have to read the second question. And there's more. Okay. What's his middle name? I went ahead and asked the second question. I couldn't help myself. Well, here you go. Nicholas Lou Saban. And why is it Lou? You said that's why your kids' names weren't what? Henry? That's right. Nicholas Lou Saban Jr. has been the football head coach at the University of Alabama since 2007. You had the number right, but the year's wrong. That's 11 years ago. And if he gets both right, just figure something else out to say. Okay. All right.
Just seems like yesterday.
Doesn't it though? It really does. I never tracked it until this year. But at this time, we have another couple of testimonies and a couple diehard fans themselves of Pastor Hank. At this time, I'd like to welcome up Miss Esther Locke, who's been here with us since she was born.
Hello. So, I've heard a couple people in here talking about Pastor Bloom, who was here before Pastor Hank. Well, I was here back then too. Of course, I was a little girl, and I had that sort of child's view of your pastor that awe and reverence and just a sense of safety and peace that you get from a pastor. So that's how I grew up in this church, and it was great. Well, of course, then I grew up, and I went to college, and kind of wasn't in town, so I wasn't here that much. Well, during that time is when Pastor Hank came here, and that was great, but I wasn't here a lot, so I didn't really know him. Well, fast forward to my graduation, and that was in 1994, so I came back to Newport News, and I was living my little 21-year-old life, chugging along, thinking, got me a job, I'm gonna get married, this is gonna be great. Well, then this realization hit me. Wait a minute. You mean the new guy is gonna be the one who marries me? I was like, I don't know this guy. What's going on here? So, of course, after meeting with Pastor Hollar for our premarital counseling, we got to know him a little bit, and then during our rehearsal dinner, it was really just a great experience. Very humorous to put us all at ease, and then as of course, as we've gone throughout the many years since then, always has a good humorous side, but then also was able to, and as basically kids, I mean, you think now getting married at 21, what was I thinking? But also was able to sort of impart a sense of gravitas when the time came to be serious. And as many of you know who serve behind the scenes here at Resurrection, pastor can be like a maestro conductor at a symphony. Everybody knew where they were going, when they were supposed to do it, and what was going to be happening. So it was very good for those of us who were just kind of going through a very emotional and trying time in our lives. So that was good to have. And even though at that time it was kind of like, wait, this is new guy, as we all know, he's very beloved here at Resurrection, and just great teacher, able to impart the word so that it's something that we can understand and apply to our lives. And that's been great for me and my kids being baptized and confirmed all through the ranks. And now, of course, they're at college and they're going to get a new guy when they come back. But
they're smarter not to get married at 21.
exactly. We're teaching them. But so change is good. But Pastor Bloom was beloved to us, and we all loved him. And Pastor Hollar, when he came, was quite different. So, but then that became a good thing, and it was just a very good atmosphere around here. So we'll congratulate you on your retirement and your move, and we wish you the best. And we'll have good change to come as a congregation. So I look forward to what the future has for us. Thank you.
You might need to. Please welcome to the lectern, Mr. Jason Hollar.
I feel like being in the front rows where we used to be as a kid, so Dad could always watch us. I did write this, so I'm gonna kind of go off script from everybody else because it made it easier so I could remember. So I'm gonna kind of take you down memory lane from Jeff and I's perspective, how it was growing up as a pastor's kid, all the way back from Alabama. But first, it's an honor and privilege to speak today about my dad. Growing up as a pastor's kid can sometimes be quite challenging. I often remember other kids asking me, what do your parents do? And every time I told them about what my dad did, we always got the same remark. He only works on Sunday. But for most of us in this room know, Dad worked much more than just on a Sunday. Dad dedicated his life to serving the congregations that he was at. Yes, he worked a lot, and sometimes we felt that we rarely saw him, especially during the busy times of Lent and Advent. However, he always made a point to be at Jeff and I's events, no matter what was going on. He knew that his presence at those events meant a great deal to us. Whether it be a football game, a band concert, or a birthday party, Dad always made sure that he was there no matter how busy he was. Growing up in Alabama for the very beginning of my life was a great experience. Most of you know in this room the entire family are huge Alabama fans, and no, we will not discuss the most recent game. I learned many great things from Dad even though I was young, from our experience there. We lived directly behind the church in the parsonage. Growing up in the parsonage can have its challenges. We were often visited late at night by people looking for food. Mom would often fix to-go meals to people to help those who were hungry. The experience taught me from an early age to truly appreciate all that I have and be thankful. Dad's decision to leave Tuscaloosa and move to Charlottesville was very hard. It was the first time in my life I experienced leaving friends and family that we had made at the church. Growing away from true family, you tend to bond with your church family. I established 2 more sets of grandparents, Granny Lou and Uncle Jim, Nanny and George, and a second mom and dad, Sandy and Steve Davidson. Having to start all over was scary. This too was another important lesson that Dad provided. The transition to Charlottesville was definitely a tough one. It was hard establishing new friends in a very, and I do mean very, different congregation. Jeff and I were put in a Christian private school thanks to some very nice members of the congregation. This too was challenging. Being a PK, most people think that your halo should be on straight at all times. Well, Jeff and I definitely had our tilted moments. We were watched very closely by the teachers of the school due to quite a bit of them attending the congregation that my dad had. Dad also established a friendship with one of the headmasters at the school. I remember very clearly Dad had invited him to attend a Sunday service dressed in his not-so-best. He walked into the church with an overgrown beard and a very casual outfit. Some of the members of the church were appalled. Yet I learned another valuable lesson from my dad: come as you are, and I will welcome you. I remember the day that Dad called us in the kitchen and told Jeff and I that he had received a call to Newport News. I had never really heard of Newport News, just that it was close to Jamestown due to a field trip we had taken at school. We had an amazing visit at the church, and I will never forget Ed and Marilyn Shank and the Goods. They truly made Jeff and my experience unforgettable. Dad's first decision to decline the call to Newport News, well, made the living arrangements not so great for a little while. I don't think Jeff and I talked to him for about a week. But God had a different plan for Dad. He received a second call, and we made the move. Resurrection has been home to our family for 26 years. It is hard to believe where I started from to standing here now honoring my dad for his service. I truly feel like I have grown up in this congregation. This congregation has celebrated our family's birthdays, anniversaries, and unfortunately some of our tough times as we lost important family members. This congregation became a true family. What you may or may not know, though, is how proud I am to call Pastor Hollar my dad. He has supported me through all of life's challenges and successes. I have learned so many valuable lessons from him, including the workaholic gene. Thank you, Dad, for everything you have sacrificed for our family and for all the amazing work you did at Holy Cross, Emmanuel, and Resurrection. I am lucky to have had everything that I've experienced in my life. I am excited for your next adventure in Little River, South Carolina. I've already enjoyed being down there multiple times. And I truly hope you enjoy your retirement. You deserve it so much.
You, Jason, you got me all spun up. Wow. Okay. Andy, we doing good? How hot is it up there? Hang in there, buddy. All right. That's some good water. That's some quality H2O. Okay. Moving right along. Okay, so getting a little bit closer to the end here, but there are yet a few more questions and answers. So what do you like to do in your spare time? Pastor Hank says, I like to putter. I wasn't quite sure if that was pooter or putter, but I went with putter. He put it in quotations, so. I like to putter. Find some time that I need to do some things that needs to be done, and I will have a lot when I get to South Carolina. He likes to read. He likes to go to Lowe's and admire all of the tools that he needs to update so that he can do all of Rita's honeydews. And of course, he likes to travel. So you'll have plenty of time for that. So I was very interested in how he got into pastoring, and he told me actually a series of scenarios where your father wanted you to go to pre-law and certainly thought that was going to happen, and then you took a left at Albuquerque because God called you, basically. You felt calling. He said, I cannot point at any one thing, but just the growing sense that God was calling me to do it. I am very thankful to Pastor Jim Wesson, who was his home congregational pastor back then when he was in high school and early college. He was a great spiritual advisor to me at that time, and I'd also think highly of Pastor Preston Wagner, who continued in that position after Pastor Wesson took a call into Florida. So I said, do you have any favorite memories from your time as a minister and here at Resurrection? He goes, oh wow, we don't have that much time for lunch. So there's a shotgun story. Everyone's got a shotgun story, right? So Pastor was on this, a pastoral committee, a team, and there was a Lutheran pastor that was out in the backwoods, somewhere in the backwoods.
Nora, Virginia.
Say again?
Nora, Virginia.
Nora, Virginia. Who knows it? Nora. Okay. Galax? Okay. No, Nora. Okay. Nora, Virginia. No stoplight. Okay. So they go to the church. They try to find this pastor so they can talk to him because there were some things that they were hearing at the Lutheran ministry. They needed to find out what was going on so they could either be of help or, whatever. The church said, you can find him over here at the store, the fire department, the post office, the bar. You know those places that everything's in one building? Yeah. Well, they went there and they finally got there after passing a few tractors. They come into the place. I added that. They come into the place, and the gentleman that was working the joint said, can I help you? He said, well, we're looking for Pastor so-and-so, and about that time, they had a loaded shotgun on him directly in their face. Who are you, and why do you want him? Wow. You know Pastor Hollar was quick-witted, right? You know he came up with something quick. They said, hey, look, man. Hey, look, we're pastors. We just want to talk to him. We're here from, Lutheran Missouri Synod. And come to find out, I guess, this pastor there were some things going on, and this pastor was helping the union at the time. And there was a bunch of stuff going on with the union. So these folks were protecting him. But I know exactly how you feel with a shotgun to your face. It's not a pretty sight. So memorable event. Okay. All right. Moving right along. A favorite and proud memory. When he was selected by the Southeastern District to be the secretary and being on the missions committee, as well as getting to be the Southeastern District Circuit Counselor. And he did a lot in all those positions. Pastor said one of his favorite memories also, and a great ministry accomplishment, was actually in the mid-1990s when the church began their future planning for the mission and the ministry of the school and child care center, which we still have today. Thank you. Another time, favorable moment, several years back, we had an experiment gone bad. Some of you know this. You were here, and you were on the council at the time. The experiment gone bad was when they decided they were going to change the wine for communion. And they didn't tell the congregation. So, you can... Y'all know the beer face, the skunky beer face? Yeah. Well, they figured out real quick that they weren't changing the wine. And they'll never do that again. So, I can only imagine. Oh. Lastly, and one of the many good memories of his time here at Resurrection, and there were many, I had a hard time actually choosing, was one particular Christmas service. Mel, you'll probably like this. one particular Christmas service, I believe you were in the middle of your sermon when they decided up in the loft, the choir was real big, and they were up in the loft, and pastor was trying to give his sermon from the pulpit, and they all put on these reindeer antlers. And in the middle of the sermon, they all stood up. Of course, he was the only one that could see them, you know. He said he almost lost it, but he held it in there. So thank you. I know it was y'all. I'm sure it was. That's right. Much like the time that you had 12 apples for Advent, and the choir decided that they would take a bite out of every single one of them. Yeah. And then you thought there were rats in the building. Yeah. And Annie Zell said, yeah, they're rats, but they're all talking, breathing human beings. We got to get an exterminator. You can't make that up. All right. Wow. I'm so glad I got to tell that story again. All right. So now that we have a little bit more time, and I think we're doing well, is there anyone else at this time who would like to come up and just say a few words? Please, you're more than welcome to come up. If for some reason you don't want to or you can't make it, we've got a taker. Aloha.
I'll try to keep this short. This Pentecost will be 25 years since Sabina and I moved here and showed up at Resurrection. I had heard of the Lutheran Church. My mom was raised Lutheran, but to be honest, I had never heard of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod in my life. Foreign language to me. The first 2 weeks, Pastor Hank was preaching. The third week, a different pastor preached, Pastor Bloom, and they were both wonderful. You may not know this, but we first moved here. We lived in Denby in an apartment. Then we moved on base at Langley. Now we live in Hampton. For years, I drove past Emmanuel as they were building it, but I stayed here. A lot of it is because of Pastor Hank. And you have been a mentor. I feel what I've learned in the last 24 years is mind-boggling to me, and you deserve a lot of the credit. And I'm going to really miss you, and God bless you. And Rita, thank you for everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I like that shirt. Did you like that Super Tramp? I know you did. By all means, please. I almost finished my water. Please come on up. Can you come to the microphone? I'm sorry. We're recording. We're recording it for them. Yeah, we're recording it for them. So.
My name's Linda Leisure, and I met Hank and Rita through Jason. And about the first time, maybe, we were invited to an anniversary party at their house. Yeah, you can laugh now. An anniversary party at their house, and I didn't know them very well, but I knew Rita liked red velvet cake, so we live in Middlesex County, and I knew there was a bakery in Gloucester. I said, I'll do the cake. I'll get the cake. And I went about 2 weeks ahead of time, and I had my little order written down and took it in and gave it to the little fellow working. And I was going to come back on that Saturday morning and pick up that cake and head down here to their house to the party. And some of you church friends, I'm sure, were there. So that cake was this big, and it was about that thick. And I go in to pick it up, and he sets it up on the counter, and I open it up, and I look at it, and I just close the top and put it down, and he said, well, what do you think of it? And I said, well, I really would like it if it had the right name on it. So when he came around and opened it up, it was Happy Anniversary, Frank and Rita. So I was devastated, my stomach hurt and everything else. But he couldn't believe it. He had to call the person who took the order, and he's back there looking at it like it was going to change every time he opened the box. But he brought it out and wanted to know what he could do, and I got the cake for half price. And went on down to Newport News and just opened the box, showed Shane and Johnny and Jason what had happened, and just sort of took that F off the top and turned it around here, that little F on the side, and put that right in here, and might have had a little smear here or there, but anyway, we doctored it up so that it was. Happy anniversary, Hank and Rita. But I don't think they've asked me to make anything else since then. We just go out to eat together. And I know I'll miss you and think of you every time Chuck and I go to Eckerd's. And we will be coming down to your area of the woods and check out restaurants and have a good time. Happy retirement, Frank.
Come on down, brother. You don't have to kneel. Just come on. You can kneel if you like. It's almost Sunday.
Good evening to everybody, and for those who don't know me, my name is Randy Snap, and on behalf of me and my wife, Robin, we first like to thank the church for allowing us to share this special event with the Hollars. The 27 years? Well, we lived right across the street from Hank and Rita and their family, and ended up becoming real good friends right off the bat. And so we've shared a lot of things, good and bad. Hank and I have done a lot of shoveling, whether it be at the beach or for Rita's parties during January, and there was 12 inches of snow out there. And the Hollars have the biggest driveway for the party patio that you always took to, So we've shared a lot of good times, and one of the times that also on the other side of the shovel end of it, they were going to the beach with us down at Nag's Head, Outer Banks. I know the one gentleman said he was down there now. And we took them out, I think one of the first times, to a place called Oregon Inlet, where you had to drive out on the beach. And my son is now 27 years old, Spencer, and so that tells you how long that they've known him and everything. And so we get out there, and my son's about 5 or 6 years old, and we get everything set up, and Hank gets his umbrella set up, and he's got his beach chair, and he's sitting under the umbrella there looking at it, and my son looks at me and looks at Hank, and he says, "What are we going to do now? Just sit around?" Hank's comment said, "Sounds good to me." And so, like I said, our friendship really grew and took off. We've been several times out to Eaton. One of our favorite places on New Year's Eve used to be the Great Steak before it closed down. And between the Hollar family and my family and everybody that relatives in the area, we probably filled the restaurant up, didn't we? But once again, congratulations on your retirement. We'll be coming down 1st of April to see you guys for the whole week. We're going to be down there with our camper. And thanks for our friendship. Thanks for everything that you've done for us, and let's continue it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. All right. Oh, I've got a waiver. One hand, Harold? One hand. Just one. Okay. Is your thumb up or down?
Wait until after I speak and we'll decide.
Okay.
You know, Hank.
Mr. Harold Beasley.
In the joint replacements, I'm winning by one. Hank and I have been bantering each other also for a number of years here. He likes a good joke. A couple things that I remember is I've made him swear at my funeral when he preaches, he has to wear a red tutu. So if I die before he does, y'all hold him to that, will you? Because I will be laughing looking at him. My funniest one is my darling wife Susan is hiding up there somewhere. We're back up in the cheap seats. When we had called Hank and we found out that he was coming, I looked at her and I said, honey, this is really going to be strange. She said, what's that? She said, we're going to have a minister. I'm going to have a minister that's our age. Without missing a beat, she looked at me and said, honey, he's younger. So, Hank, we thank you, and I thank you. My family thanks you for being our pastor, seeing us through the good times and the bad times, and we wish you well in your retirement. Enjoy. You've earned it.
I know, right? Keep it together.
I moved here in the year 2000, and we've lived here for as long as, gosh, just about anywhere we've lived. And the Sunday we were here is my most memorable sermon that you preached. You were preaching on Luke 22:32, which is when, oh Lord, when Jesus prays for Peter and says, I've been praying for you because I know what's going to happen. I'm paraphrasing. I know what's going to happen. You're going to deny me. And when you return, I want you to minister to your brothers. And Pastor Hollar preached. I was up in the balcony because we had two little boys that were not sitting in the front row because the littlest one is all over the place and driving us crazy. So we were up in the balcony, and I'm taking notes because what he's saying is speaking to my heart and to my life. And I realized that you don't have to pray away the hard times. Jesus didn't pray away Peter's denial. He said, when you return. And if these two people don't demonstrate that unconditional love that sees beyond who you are as an ugly sinner, or who your little kids are driving you crazy, wanting to pull your hair out. And Rita, I thank you. You have loved both my kids, but the older one was a little more challenging to love at one time. And you called them your boys, and you ran around confirmation class squirting them with squirt guns, and I was like, oh, wow, this brings my kids to church. And when they would shake hands and he would tell me I'm not a hugger, I'd tell my kids, Art, just shake his hand because he doesn't really like to hug. But you would get down to their level and look right in their eyes. And what a gift that is to children, to see the pastors that when I grew up in Lutheran church, they were kind of scary, they were grumpy, they were shaking a finger, My grandpa was one. But you weren't that way. You were welcoming, you were open, you were forgiving, you love unconditionally like your Savior. And both of you exemplify that. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my family's heart, and probably this whole church family. So keep on.
Mr. Mike Unking. How did you get two lays?
I'm not telling.
I want that one.
Well, thank you all, and a hearty welcome to all of you. I'd like to extend the right hand of fellowship to you all. I'm going to miss that. Not that the new pastor won't have his own little idiosyncrasies, but for us, my wife and I come from different backgrounds. I grew up as a Catholic. My wife grew up in a Baptist church environment. When we first got married in 1995, we were at Virginia Beach Community Chapel. 1995. That's when my daughter was born. 1993, my wife is definitely correcting me there. So we were going to Virginia Beach Community Chapel. That's where we got married. And so we were working on the non-denominational church. But then when we moved to the peninsula in 2000, I felt my roots to wanting to go back to the Catholic Church. And of course, my wife from a Baptist background, she didn't really take to the Catholic Church too well. Not at all. So she wound up going to the sister chapel of Virginia Beach Community Chapel, which is Peninsula Community Chapel. And so she was going there. I was going to St. Cateri, Tekakwitha, which is right down the street from it. But we were struggling as a family because we were kind of doing different things. And I come to learn that for a marriage to work and a family to thrive, you need to be in church together. How important that was. So we actually had, when we had Matthew, he came out here to the school. And we had him when I think he was 3. Okay. When he was 3 years old, we had him in the school, Miss Ezell. And we were just so taken by the love that the school, Miss Ezell, the whole experience. We're like, that's not too far from our house. We actually only live right over there. So we can easily come here, and we checked it out. Of course, Pastor Hollar and Rita were here. And from that moment on, we found a home to call our own because of the way they led this church, the kind of love. We felt welcome, and we found a place where Jesus is truly worshiped and glorified. The message is in every single one of his sermons about how much Jesus should be a part of your life. And ever since then, our family has grown and flourished because of your model that you set for us. And for those of you who don't know, they said earlier about how much time he actually puts in. There's been many times where I've met him at the hospital to visit people who were going through surgery so that we could pray for them. The man basically was on call 24/7. If anybody needed him, they pick up the phone, called him, he would be there. And that is a huge testimony of the kind of man and the ministry that he's had. And he's going to be you're going to be truly missed by me and my family. Both my kids were confirmed here. And even though they were also confirmed to the Catholic Church prior to that, but once we came here, we had them go through the confirmation process here, and they are living their lives in faith, and I attribute that to you and Rita, and thank you so much for all that you do.
Okay, so hold that thought. No, it's awesome. Well, that's a deep subject. We have time for one more. Come on up. As I was reading the names that I was going to honor this evening in the sanctuary, and I received, come on up, Bobby. I received it from Pastor. He said something about this guy named David and this wonderful woman named Bobby.
I'm Bobby, Hank's sister-in-law, and I've been his sister-in-law for 38 years. But before we got married, we dated several years, and I knew Hank and Rita for a good while. And I remember when it was time for you to be ordained, your mother was so proud of you. And I think that if she were here today and heard your congregation and the people that have known you for so many years, that she would just be so proud and she would be shining. And I'm just thankful that the Lord brought you to be a minister, and I know that you have just blessed so many people with your ministry, and I know that Dot would just be so proud of you, because she was so proud of you then, but I think even to this day, when she would see how many lives that you have touched and how the Lord has blessed you and helped you to bring others to him. And I just wanted to say that I've been thinking about her a lot today, and that's it.
Well, looking at our time, hold on. No, I'm good. Okay. I am. You're a smart man. I should probably call on our last testimonial, and that is, of course, Mrs. Ann Ezel.
Be afraid. Be very afraid. Snapper, known as Bill Deck, the heavy drinker, cornered me, was walking down the hallway in school one day, and he said, "You know you're going to speak at Pastor's retirement because you're the one that's worked with him the longest." I didn't quite know how to take that, but I said, "Okay, this is my chance." So, how do you sum up 27 years of a working relationship with a wonderful person? I figured it out. You are going to have a developmental checklist. Yes. Every teacher, every year, has the opportunity to observe and evaluate her students. And I see several teachers in the audience tonight, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, you're going to get a chance to hear my developmental checklist for Pastor Hollar. So do I have the clicker? Okay. Which way do I aim? There we go. Now you all passed the reading test, and I'll give you some brief explanation. Of course, I left child on there because he is a child of God. I will not explain his childish behavior. We'll just leave it at that. Now, I did draw other comments from other staff members, so I will not take 100% credit for everything that's on here. However, I must admit that most of it is mine. Today's date. I hesitate to say this because I am older than Pastor Hollar, and he's older than dirt. So. Now, the key is explained here. MA is mastered, OC observed consistently. WT means working toward. NA means that I didn't assess it because I probably couldn't stand to watch it, so I just skipped on. And I added a new category called OHN, which means oh heck no. Now we've divided this up into categories. Vocabulary and language is consistent for age. We observe that consistently. It depended on the day. If Pastor Hank walked in and he was smiling and cheerful and disrupting everything, we knew it was going to be, oh my gosh, we need to go to our rooms right now. If he walked in and was very quiet, we were all sending out prayers of thanksgiving because we knew he wasn't going to bug us that day. Okay. Learning to listen and follow simple directions. He's still working toward that. It needs improvement. If you want further explanation, please see Ann Wallstrom. She'll give you all the details. He participates in songs and finger plays. We observed it consistently. He was slightly uncoordinated with some of the finger plays we did in chapel. He does sing well. He sings loud. And he always hummed into his microphone when the hymns were being performed. Now, he does show an interest in books. We observed that consistently, but it was beyond our reading requirement because they were all written by Stephen King. He takes part in conversation and discussion. We gave him an observed consistently plus because he is outstanding in that field. He talks constantly even when his input isn't required. He shows interest in written language, scribbles, linear, repetitive, observed consistently. He enjoys being on the computer, and he likes to look busy. He begins to trace and print letters of the alphabet. We're working toward that. His handwriting needs improvement. That is why he's always on the computer. He begins to print his first name. Well, he's mastered that. Because he likes to write very large, but he has trouble with spatial relationships because it takes up the whole page. Number readiness. He has begun to count, and he has mastered that, okay? But he needs help balancing his checkbook. He begins to identify shapes, circle, square, triangle, rectangle. Mastered that one, especially round. We've heard about that in several of his sermons, and he blames it on Rita, so we'll just... Begins to identify colors, and they're all listed there. He's mastered those. He has highlighted and highlighted and highlighted. He uses them very well. In fact, this is the first page of tomorrow's sermon. If I don't return it, he's really lost, so I'll go to the highest bidder for the first page of the sermon. Okay. He's beginning to understand calendar concepts. He's working toward that because at times he has trouble remembering what day it is. Okay. And he does odd things, gets his seasons all mixed up. We hear Christmas carols all year round. He's beginning to sort according to color, size, and shape. Again. He loves highlighters. He changes font and letter size on the computer. Every report he has ever submitted has 13 different types of type. He counts to 10. He's working toward that because he still has to use his fingers on it. He recognizes written numbers, but he's working toward that because he still tries to use Roman numerals. He is an older student. Emotional and social development. Shares personal experiences all the time. Plays and works well with others. He's working toward that. Does not take direction well, just ask Ann Walster. He begins to share and take turns. Well, he's working toward that too. Just ask Ann Walster. Listens well. Practices selective hearing. He hears you when he wants to, he doesn't hear you. And then he blames it on his hearing aids. He engages in simple group games. He does that consistently. He participated in the school carnival dunking booth many times, had a good crowd every time he did, and he took part in the VBS Ice Bucket Challenge. Helps with cleanup activities, yes. He participated in church work days. Now, Rita can't get him to do a thing around the house, but he did participate in church work days. Shows interest and attention in classroom activities. Yes. He enjoys the unit on farm animals and can imitate any animal sound known to mankind, especially at nap time. He doesn't nap. That's the problem. His use of technology. He uses the phone intercom system too well. In fact, whenever we hear bzzz, we all run. And he uses it at the most inappropriate times. When you're truly working, you hear bzzz. Just ask Ann Wallstrom. Able to express and verbalize feelings, desires, thoughts, and needs. Observed consistently. Good sermons, and he articulates them very well. I don't remember walking out of here going, what did he say? Because I've listened. He smiles and seems happy most of the time. But we're not sure if it's due to the use of his colored markers or if he's just generally that way. His muscle coordination, okay? We observe them on large muscle control and small muscle control, okay? Well, he spilled communion wine on several of the parishioners more than once. And he's dropped the ashes on Ash Wednesday. I know, poor Uncle Fred was spread all across the field. He has an adequate energy level. He's hyperactive and he may need medication. He speaks clearly and distinctly all of the time, except he needs help pronouncing the word peninsula. No. And hurricane, not hurricane. Uses crayons and markers. Well, I can honestly say I've never seen him use a crayon, but he sure got that highlighter. Attempts to use scissors, Oh, heck no. We're not letting, he is not allowed to use this. His spiritual development, he identifies Jesus in pictures, and by this time he should be able to do that. He enjoys hearing stories about Jesus, but he always puts a new spin on it. If you've ever been in his Bible classes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you don't, you need to go, but it'll be a little too late to hear the Revised Standard Version of the Bible story as written by Hank Hollar. He joins in worship activities and prayers. Our school chapels, when he is in charge, are always informative, very exciting. He really knows how to stir those kids up. It takes us 45 minutes to calm them back down. So that is Pastor Hank Hollar's developmental checklist. But congratulations. It's been a pleasure, sometimes a nerve-wracking pleasure, but it's been a pleasure to work with you, and we ask God's richest blessings on both you and Rita. Jason, you have my undying sympathy. I know what it's like to be a PK. Your halo might have been tilted. Mine was held up by its horns. But we pray, yeah, I'm sure you do. But we pray God's richest blessings on you. You will be missed.
So with that, just a quick few things I want to say before I let Miss Izelle putter on. I'm never going to forget that word putter now. It's been a great evening, and we're wrapping it up now. We're going to get into the presentation of gifts. There are only going to be just a few official gifts. We know that you've been brought several gifts that are there in the fellowship hall, and we'll make sure Jason gets all those for you before he leaves. Okay? I'll help you out. We'd like to, at this time, let Miss Annie Zell, on behalf of the school staff, give you your gift. You'll have to carry this.
Carry that.
Not now.
Now that you've gotten your developmental checklist, we wish to present you with this beach umbrella so that you can sit under it and ponder what we've just shared with the congregation. Enjoy.
Look at that.
Do not put it up in the church, it's bad luck.
No, it's good luck. It's good luck.
Yeah, we'll just hear it.
All right. I think I'm looking for that Mr. Andy Lewis. Come on down. You're the next contestant on. No. I asked Doreen to bring that big chair in here, but she said, "Are you crazy?" All right. Mr. Andy Lewis.
Greetings. Where are we? This is from the Board of Directors, the BOD. We know how much you like to work and do. Can we have a slide, please? We are giving you a chair.
You can look up there.
And you actually get a nicer one. And you get two, which is nice. We couldn't bring it to you. We put this is what it's really going to be, because we didn't want you to have it in your car. And you can put beverages in that thing. Coke, Pepsi, root beer, things like that. and it is a very sturdy thing like this. And
What's
it
a
goes-
Coke and Root?
I know, it's a strange thing. But we knew you'd want to relax and be able to put these on your porch, overlooking your spacious pond and the like. And relax, and the ducks. We also have a little card, just for fun. Thank you very much.
Mean Gene, the dancing machine. Remember the Gong Show?
Yes.
Yeah, come on. Hook or crook, right? Okay. Seriously. Who's next? Mr. Trevor Arkinall from the Board of Elders. The elderly board.
My foot chair.
Yeah.
My toe chair.
You could put your big toe on that.
Well, like John Gerke, I'm not used to people clapping for me either. But first off, I do have one confession that I must make in our parting thing. I was on the committee that picked the wine that we had the big fiasco with. So, and the other one I am embarrassed to say, the reindeer antlers were made at our house. But there's so many things and so many memories, and it's, I know this is hard for all of us, and you certainly will be missed, and we're afraid that you're going to forget us. So, and I don't see how that's possible. We can't really forget you. You were part of us, and we are part of you, and that's how we grow in Christ, and we're all part of the body of Christ, and that's all part of what we are. But anyway, we have a plaque for you, and let me read what it says. We thank you for the over 26 years of faithful service you have provided the Resurrection Lutheran Church. You have served the Lord tirelessly, faithfully, and with gladness and great compassion for his flock. Your investment in the lives of others has truly made a difference. You have given hope and encouragement to so many. We congratulate you on this milestone of retirement and pray that God will continue to bless both you and Rita as you enter into this new chapter in your lives. Fight the good fight for faith, keep holding on to eternal life, to which you were called and about which you gave a good testimony in front of many witnesses. 1 Timothy 6:12. So, thank you.
And there's a gift.
There is a plaque somewhere.
Yeah. Yes. It's coming.
Oh, okay.
So we're supposed to have that ready, is that what you're saying?
Apparently.
That wasn't in my script.
Just ask Ann again.
What are you going to do? You know, you've been in this situation many times, and you just, for some reason, always mean to make it seamless. Like, I did not. A lot of paper. Go ahead.
Maybe get it out.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wait a second.
Let me hold the card for you.
Can I open it?
Sure, by all means. I looked for Ann for some reason. Is that okay?
Oh, that's how it goes.
So now, you can sit for just a second, if you would. Thank you. Miss Dorrit, could you come on up? I think Miss Rita Hollar needs to come up too. But you can be over here where we can see you.
I want to tell a quick story. I don't know how many of you know this, but Kevin and I were married in this church by Pastor Hollar. And we knew about the premarital checklist that we had to go through. And so we did it on our own because we're grown-ups. So we went and had our financial counseling done, and we went to the pastoral counseling, and so we were all good. And we come to Pastor Hank, and he says, well, all right, you got your checklist done. Everything looks really good. What day do you guys want to get married? And I said, we are going to get married on Saturday, June 9th. And he puts his head down, and he says, it's not going to happen. And I said, why not? He says, because that's my anniversary, and we have dinner plans. So we got married June 8th. But Rita and I always ran to the flower chart when Ann would put the flower chart up, because see who could first be the first one to put flowers down for our anniversary. All right, I'm here on behalf of the WIGS, the Women in God Service. Besides Rita being the president of WIGS for at least 5 years or more, she's my itty-bitty buddy. I've missed you already. I've missed you. And we'll continue to miss you. Thank you for helping the WIGS get where they are. Thank you for being there for us, and thank you for being there for me. We just have, it's just a little, it's not anything really special, so. Wow. Wow. Rita likes snowmen, if you don't know that. If you've never seen her house at Christmas time, you wonder where all the snowmen are. They're at Rita's house. So this is just every time you see this, you'll think of us, okay? And Kevin and I will be down to see you next month. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorrit. Thank you, Ms. Hollar. At this time, please help me with a big round of applause and welcome Mr. Pastor William Hollar, Jr.
I just have a few remarks, but you may want to get your pillows out just to be on the safe side. And I want to emphasize that Ann is older than I am. I do want. First off, I'd like to say thank you very much to everyone who is here. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around the fact that I've been here 26 and a half years, and I'm completing almost 40 years of ministry. And in a sense, I'm not going to be a pastor anymore, because the word pastor means shepherd, overseer, and I'm not going to have anybody to oversee. I'll be overseen by Rita. But I will be a reverend, and I know that I've already been contacted by a few pastors in South Carolina who are so excited I'm coming, because they say, we got somebody to sub for us now. We got somebody to sub for us now. And Rita and I have already chosen a church. We're going to be at Risen Christ Lutheran Church in North Myrtle Beach. And Rita's made it very clear to Pastor Kurt Sizik that I'm untouchable for 3 months. So because he's asked more than once, right, baby? Yes. So just thank you, because you don't learn how to be a pastor in the seminary. You get your head filled with homiletics, preaching. You get your head filled with systematics, the study of doctrine, biblical theology, Bible classes, Greek, and more Greek on top of that, Hebrew, psychology, which makes us dangerous, quite frankly. We have just enough psychology to be dangerous. But it is the congregations that I have served that have made me a pastor. And I have learned from each of them, from Holy Cross, from Emmanuel, and from you. And I appreciate that very much. And you have been my teachers also. So please give yourself a hand, because I certainly do. So please. Rita and I look forward to seeing some of you in South Carolina. Room and board is very cheap, I can tell you that. And we look forward to hosting you. I know that our son will be down there, who really encouraged us to move. He said this was a dangerous area. He just wanted to be close to the beach, and now we understand what's going on. But we look forward to seeing you. I'm going to be leading the Bible class tomorrow here at Resurrection, the one in the fellowship hall. And one of the things we'll be talking about is the covenant that the congregation and I have signed, and what I can and cannot do. And so I just want to make sure that we're very clear on that. And there are certain boundaries. One of the things I learned from a mentor by the name of Gerhard Bloom, pastored here 29 years, one of the biggest reasons I turned the call down the first time is I could not see myself stepping in and replacing a pastor who'd been here 29 years. There are horror stories about that, just horror stories. But he called me back and said, I promise you, if you come, you won't see me. And he lived up to that. He lived up to that. He allowed me to establish my ministry. And for that, I will always be eternally grateful for him. And he was still a mentor up until the day he died. So, and I do miss him. He was just a great pastor. I want to thank Rita. She pushed and pulled when I was in seminary, and I was ready to quit numerous times. How about that master's thesis I wrote, baby? If you want a good story, ask Rita about the master's thesis. But anyway, we made it and got called. I have to admit, we have what's called the call service at the seminary. And there were, in my class, there were 101 men, 102 men. There were 3 of us that got a round of applause when they announced our calls. All of us were going to Alabama. Because each of us had wanted to go south. And I thought I was a Southerner till I got to Alabama. That's a whole different world down there. And if you want to enjoy or see a congregation when their football team loses, there were numerous times I would junk my sermon because Alabama lost, and I knew that those people were devastated. They needed good news. They really did. And, they wouldn't sing, they wouldn't say the creed, they couldn't believe that there would be a tomorrow, So, again, good ministry there. An interesting ministry in Emmanuel, right, son? Yes. And certainly a wonderful ministry here. And for that, we're very grateful. And to all of you. And thank you for coming out tonight. It's already almost 8 o'clock. It's an hour beyond when they said we'd let you go home. So it's time to close. Okay? Thank you very much, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hello? I promise you if you take a seat, I'll be less than 2 minutes. Closing remarks. Thank you for joining us this evening to honor and farewell both Pastor Hank and Rita Hollar. Please take the time before you leave to make sure that you have everything that you brought with you, whether that's here or in there. And please drive home safe. For those of you who are willing to stay and help up and straighten out, please get with Mike Heckenberger and with Janet and Tom Rake. As Pastor Hollar always used to say, many hands makes light work. At this time, it would be an honor if you would close us in prayer. Hold on 1 second, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to know when the DVD of tonight's entertainment was going to be available for purchase.
You'll be needing to check with our awesome volunteer ID department. We'll get with you tomorrow, okay? It will be though, okay? It is now, it's live. There you go.
And my new TV program, Hollar for Jesus, will be coming. Just watch out, South Carolina. Here we come. We're Lutherans. Let us stand. We haven't stood up and sat down a half dozen times. Let us pray. Gracious Lord, Heavenly Father, all glory be to you as we come together to celebrate this congregation, to celebrate a ministry, my ministry that has been here for quite a long time, to celebrate the work of Rita and all the others. We just give you thanks, Lord, that together you have used us as we shared your word, as we prayed for one another, as we sought out those in our community who needed to hear words of hope and comfort and your great love through your Son, Jesus, our Savior. So send us forth to be your people wherever we may be, and help us to realize that wherever we are, there is the church, because we are reflectors of Jesus Christ. Grant us your peace and continue to use us forever and ever. And we thank you for all that you do for us. And this we ask in the name of Jesus, our precious Savior, and all God's people said, Amen.
And good night. Once again, good night and thank you for coming. God bless.